The VCR is recording. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our Insights and Innovation series. Today, we have the wonderful oOh with us. We have Tim and Eliza, the leaders over there, and they're going to be talking about a number of things kickstarting this year. This for them and for our industry is a line in the sand. And it's about what's coming up, what they're working on from a data point of view, from a programmatic point of view, where the big bets are happening, what's happening in their business. But I don't want to steal their thunder, so I'll hand over to Tim and Eliza to take over, and I'll keep my big mouth shut.
Don't feel you need to, Sam, and that goes for everyone else, because I think whilst as rare as it is to actually have Q&A or questions throughout a Zoom call, or video call, can't say Zoom, it's not a Zoom call. For the video call, please guys, please feel free to throw your hand up. And if we miss anything along the way, we'll absolutely jump in on the end and answer any questions that we need to. Now, I am going to try my best here. And again, I've had 2 years practice of doing this, so it should work, is to share screen. And I believe I am there. Yeah. All good? Okay, great. All right, so launching in. I was just looking at this title slide here just before we kicked off and talking with my colleague Eliza, who's going to be doing most of the presenting today. And when we were building out the deck for this presentation, we landed on this as the title slide. And keep in mind, we were putting this together back in sort of late November, beginning of December, where it very much felt like there was the start of something new. It all endured something quite extraordinary over the course of 2020 and 21. And I think that it's fair to say that despite the fact, the small period of time it was since we actually put this in there, a lot has obviously gone on, particularly from an Omicron point of view. But at the end of the day, despite the fact that COVID is well and truly pushing its way hard and fast throughout the community, we are starting something new now. This is very much the start of a new era, particularly compared to what we have actually endured over the last 2 years. And today's presentation is very much going to be leaning into our view on this. The lens that we're taking on this is as a whole of sector, so not just oOh, but very much the wider out-of-home sector. And some thoughts and feelings about where we feel things are at right now, where we feel things are heading across the course of this year. But the one thing we've certainly learned over the last 2 years is that nothing is set in stone until it absolutely happens. And I guess because of that, and given the forum that we're in right now, we'd very much like to open this up as an open conversation as we go through this, or at very least, like I said, if you've got some questions, let's throw them around at the end. But before any of that, I would like to very much say thank you for having us today. It's funny, the vision we had on this meeting when we were mapping it out with the leadership group a couple of months ago was that we'd very much like to do it in a room, ideally with some of the members present. But again, of course, as it has been the case for quite some time now, Corona had another plan for us. But you know what? That's fine, because clearly right now, as I said a second ago, we're entering into a new stage of the evolution of our new normal, in living with and not fighting against the virus. So whilst it's not all of us in a room, we're all in a virtual room, and I'm at least in a room with one of my colleagues today, sharing some thoughts with you. I'd also like to say a big and very heartfelt thank you to all of you, the agencies and the IMAA, for the partnership, particularly over these last 12 months. Look, we proudly hosted the first IMAA meeting in 2020, which quite frankly feels like many lifetimes ago. And what the group has managed to achieve over that very small period is nothing short of incredible, and very much a testament to the vision, testament to the leadership, and probably more importantly, and above all else, the passion and drive of the indie agency cohort. I know from speaking from, I guess, as a representative of our side of the fence when it comes to indie agencies, there's a very genuine sense of positive momentum on our side and from our team. And there's a very deep sense of pride and care and love for those who do look after indies. We're very much feeling that coming into this year. So now to touch on who is in the room. Well, as I've said, there are only two of us. Whilst, yes, we are actually proudly increasing the amount of people who are servicing the indie agencies this year, with the resourcing against the indies from our side will, once we're finished with our current recruitment process, will look to be around about 70 direct salespeople who will be looking after either indie agencies or with client direct. So very much a sign of our commitment to the sector, and very much an opportunity for us all. There's no doubt about that. But again, we can't all be in the same room. It is just the two of us. So my name is Tim Elder. I'm the head of sales at oOh Media for direct and independent agencies. Joining me to my socially distanced left is Eliza Mackenzie, who is the National Solutions Director, who will be leading the vast majority of today's update. Now, before I hand Eliza the virtual reins, I just wanted to point out two things that we are, I guess, sort of uniquely proud of at oOh Media. Firstly, the obvious one here up on screen, that we are very proudly born, bred and grounded in Australia. We care a lot about your brands and what they have to say. We take a huge amount of pride in how we connect and engage with our audiences in delivering your brand's message as well. So it is something we take very, very personally, and it's something that is very, very dear to our heart. Something very, very close to our heart as well is the leadership position that we have within the out-of-home space here in Australia and New Zealand, where we are proud to be the market leader. We take this responsibility very, very seriously. And while most slides within this document are very much going to have a bright orange logo with an exclamation mark beside it, as this one here does as well, the lens that we're taking within today's narrative is very much one of whole of sector. So, and again, I think that is also very much a reflection of the leadership position that we take within the market. So, like I said, I'm going to hand over the presentation now to Eliza, who is for you on a different screen. She's actually just there, as you can see. But handing over now to Eliza to lead us in from here.
Thank you, Tim. What an introduction. And as you've already covered, it is absolutely fantastic to be here with you all virtually today. And it's great to see so many people online. This is a pretty honest and transparent conversation. As one of our key partners, this is all about us giving you some insight into our business strategy as we step into 2022, and also giving you our perspective of what we're focusing our attention on, what we're looking at, a lot of which is also relevant for the wider sector as well. I think the only thing that we can be sure of right now is that the future is unpredictable. Every time we try to make some assumptions, something changes. As Tim said, this presentation was built in November, late November into December, and we came back from Christmas and the reality that COVID is in our community and had to update quite a few things in it. So this is our best take as of today, and hopefully some of it resonates with you. It is always really hard, as Sam said, to have a conversation in these big forums, but we would love to hear from you. So whether that is shooting us an email directly after this or putting some questions in the chat box, please, we'd love to continue the chat. So the better part of 2 years. Something we want to be really clear on is not recapping too much on COVID. It's a conversation that we're all really quite sick of having, I'm sure, on a day-to-day basis. With that being said, there are a few things throughout the last couple of years that absolutely have impacted our business and made us pivot in certain directions. And it's really important to frame where they've come from. Thanks, Tim. If we click through to the next slide. So that being said, I think, the most impactful thing is the way the strategy around living with COVID has changed. In 2021, the world and subsequently us, be it 6 months later, stopped chasing zero. Eradication absolutely moved to vaccination, and the watch on case numbers became second only to the watch on vaccination percentages. The change in this strategy, paired with the rollout of the really high vax numbers, has given the community a lot of hope that the larger city-state wide lockdowns are something that actually are in our review mirrors, fingers crossed. And I think as recently as the end of last year, we're seeing a much higher focus on the booster shots to help safeguard this freedom. That being said, as we're all really across, early in the new year, we've once again been reminded, as I said before, about how unpredictable this pandemic is. In the short time since Christmas, we are now absolutely learning to live with the reality that COVID is in the community. And whilst the rules for Australians as a whole are constantly changing around COVID, what doesn't appear to be back on the table is those mass lockdowns and isolations. The focus instead is on minimising the impact on our healthcare system and the risk to vulnerable individuals and communities. And this is really evident in our audience numbers, and that's what we're obviously bringing this back to. So whilst COVID cases have never been higher, I know it's seemingly on the way down at the moment from the current peak, audiences are absolutely still out and about. And what we're seeing, and again, it'd be great to talk to you guys around how this relates to your teams and your business, we're seeing individuals mitigate their own personal risk. So balancing that with still living their best personal life as well, which is very much where we sit today. Running simultaneously alongside the pandemic is an interesting trend that you've probably read about emerging out of the last 18 months that's been called the Great Resignation. Now, absolutely, we are hearing more about this overseas than what we're seeing on Australian shores, but it is absolutely having an impact on our industry as well. So very much driven by personal impact of COVID-19. There's naturally been an immense focus on reassessing what's important to oneself. I think, just look to your own personal life and try and find someone that's not reassessing some part of their life at the moment, which is very normal given the environment that we're living in. Pair that with the new world that we find ourselves in, i.e. the work flexibility, constant interruptions of COVID-19. And the question for today is, how is this going to have an impact on us and how we work moving forward? So beyond the self-assessment, our industry has always relied quite heavily on foreign talent, particularly in the Sydney and Melbourne markets, which has all but ceased to exist since COVID hit our shores 18 months ago. This lack of talent has put a burden on staff, leading to longer hours of being worked, over-isolating, which has all led to additional mental strain and burnout. What this will mean for us moving forward is that the collaboration between us and all key partners is going to need to be at an all-time high. There's been a swell of movements, increased new starts, promotion means that people are potentially taking that step forward before they're ready, or maybe considering that before they would have traditionally. So there are those short-term knowledge gaps in information being shared that we all have to lean in and help with as we move into 2022. But what does this all mean for the out-of-home sector and more specifically for oOh? Despite an incredibly hard 18 to 24 months that no one has escaped, we're really excited about the future. And the great thing for us is that there's many proof points. It's not something that we're just having a guess about and trying to be optimistic. You can see here our audience numbers. What you're looking at there is probably one of the worst weeks of the pandemic back in 2020 compared with the reality of audiences moving late last year. And I think specifically this is looking at road and retail audience numbers. Now, the so what of this slide is not that it's jumped up that 44% when we release this in late November. It's the fact that hopefully this is the last time we have to come to market and actually say audiences are back. As I said before, people are mitigating their own personal risk, but also still trying to live with the reality of COVID in the community. And what we're seeing is that stabilisation of people being out and about, and hence our audiences. Where we as a business are focusing our attention is absolutely and this is for both our people and for our clients. It's absolutely on stability and flexibility. So it's stability in the confidence of the out-of-home sector, but importantly, it's not our own opinion. You just have to look at some of the econometric modelling, some of the mediarised surveys that very much show to the confidence building, both in the media landscape, but also specifically for us within the out-of-home sector as well. And whilst we're talking about stability, it also applies to our different networks. So in 2022, we will continue to see stability across our core assets of billboards, retail and street furniture. It is without doubt the scale of these networks that has enabled us to reach and engage audiences through the pandemics as people, were moving about closer to home and more so in the suburban and regional areas. And we have a really clear strategy around how we continue to refine this stability in 2022. You just have to look to the proof points of what we're doing within some of the networks. If we look at billboards specifically, in the last 6 years, we've had a minimum of 20 digitisations across the Impact network. If we look more recently to 2021, we actually had 32 digital sites in our portfolio convert over. So we're already outstripping our own benchmark. This should give some confidence to the expanding ongoing strategic growth for digital, securing key locations to help add to our audience proposition. It's important to note, though, that we pair that digitisation strategy with our continued focus on classic as well. We know this also plays a really crucial role in driving reach and share of voice. And to be clear, the same can be said for small format in terms of our digitisation and our classic focus as well. Are you turning around, moving?
Oh, good.
Yep, we're still 1.5 metres apart.
We are.
Fantastic. So look, all in all, what's really exciting for us is that the tide is turning. And beyond that stability of billboards and small format, we're encouraged by the momentum that we're seeing build across our engagement network. This is almost, as Sam said at the start of this conversation, this is what we're calling the line in the sand moment for what is our most strategic network. So what does that mean for our networks of fly, office and youth environments? These powerful networks are starting to come back to life and are once again providing unique opportunities to reconnect with specific and niche audience targets in high dwell, high engagement environments. We are absolutely the authority on fly and office within the Australian landscape, and also youth environments like universities. So whether it is a business C-suite audience who are harder to reach than a lot of other audience, or that elusive youth savvy audience, we have a unique opportunity to not only reach them, but also engage them. And in terms of what's driving this confidence, I would expect you guys are seeing a lot of this out as well. Tim and I were just talking about the fact that international borders are set to open in 3 to 4 weeks. News coming out this morning. Obviously, a lot of the hard borders that have existed within Australia are ceasing to exist, with the exception of WA at this point. Localised travel is on the increase. If you pair that with our office environments where work flexibility will start to settle with less volatility, that's what we hope and what we're expecting to see. This will enable us to continue to have that really high 1+ reach with slightly less saturation around frequency. So there's a lot of great proof points to support these networks, and specifically on youth. This is the first year in nearly 3 years where students will be able to get the full on-campus experience. So if you think about anyone that's starting university from 2020, 2021 and 2022, this is the first time they get to actually live that, which is really exciting for them and a great opportunity around the university environments. Obviously, there is a lot more that we could go into about those networks, but this is very much a bird's eye view at what we're expecting to see across the different networks. What is also really exciting with us before we move on within our engagement networks is our continued relationship with Qantas, which is absolutely going from strength to strength. And the reason we're putting a bit of a spotlight on this today is that there will be some exciting news in this space in the coming months, which we're really excited to share with you, and will create further opportunities to reach some of those elusive audiences as well. Now, it would be remiss of us not to touch on what does this mean from oOh, from an executive leadership direction. And with Kathy in the business 12 months now, what is really clear is her focus and investment in both people and technology, with the recent appointments of Matt, our Chief Technology and Information Officer, and Rachel, our Chief People and Culture Officer. As a business, we have the scale, and in recent years, we are on the journey around optimization of our audiences. As a sector leader, it is really important for us to recognise that people and technology will absolutely be the enablers for us to take the next step into that new era of out of home, and we want to be really clear on that. Both Matt and Rachel come with a wealth of knowledge and experience that is really setting us up for success in this space. So if oOh, as a sales organisation, was to have a statement of intent for 2022, it would read something like this. In 2022, success for us is innovating around the way we engage and collaborate with partners, ultimately driving better outcomes for our clients, and, as we always have done at oOh, having a lot of fun along the way. In terms of the opportunity, I'm about to throw a few numbers at you, but this is something that we're paying a bit of attention to at the minute. So whilst the opportunity specific to oOh, including our people and networks, looks bright, the same can be said for the larger out-of-home sector, which, as we said, we wanted to touch on today. So if you click through to the next slide, Tim, it'll start to highlight a few things. So as we all know, and these are rough figures, approximately 40% of advertising comes from what is defined as traditional media, with the remaining 60% coming from advertising on digital channels. Of that 40% traditional media, 10% of that or thereabouts roughly is consumed in public spaces. So people that are out of the home. And obviously that 10% does go beyond out of home media as well, with the remaining 30% of traditional media being consumed in home. Now, if you take that stat, that 10% of traditional advertising is spent outside of home, so inclusive of the out-of-home sector and also radio. Yet 85% of sales or thereabouts still take place in real-world stores. So more specifically, we're talking 85% of sales across multiple categories. The point, or rather what this highlights, is the importance of having away from home traditional media in your media mix that targets consumers' journey in the real world. So to stand out from the clutter, influence real world customer journeys and drive majority of where total sales take place in store. We see a huge opportunity in this space. So whilst we are solely focused on the future, there are some outtakes from COVID that have absolutely changed the way we worked in a few different pockets that we'd like to touch on briefly. And if you like, you can almost call them silver linings. So 2 years on, what is now part of our hygiene? The big one for us is absolutely audience. And when we talk about audience, we are talking more specifically about audience planning, audience buying, audience delivery, and even audience at the heart of all of our commercial decisions that we make as a business. And we wanted to point out at this point, we have a wealth of information that is available to all of you as partners of ours, including this case study library that goes across many different categories that we can start to share the effectiveness of certain campaigns and how they've performed. So we wanted to drip feed some of the tools and things that you guys have available to you. And then beyond that, data. Data is absolutely one of the things that we have hung our hat on as a business for the last 10 years, probably more. And there is a huge amount of different tools that you have access to. Again, too many to talk about on this call today, but we'd love to reach out or to get in touch with us post this conversation to let us know how we can help you in the space of applying data insights to campaign planning. But just to go deep for a second, more specifically, sorry, my computer is freezing. Whilst we've spent a lot of time in 2021 showing our intent around audience-led briefs and our ability to optimize against a certain biographic/category buyer, it's really important to point out that absolutely every brief we receive from the market is underpinned by audience, and we're really well set up as a business to respond to this. We know format and location-driven briefs will continue to drive a large portion of the briefs that come in for the out-of-home sector, and our scale and quality across all of those networks that we've just touched on will enable us to be really competitive in this space. That being said, audience briefs are what we have defined as better ways to buy, and hopefully all of you heard about this strategy that we took to market. When did we?
May last year. Yep.
This will absolutely continue to be a core business strategy across the can't even say our own name, across our own portfolio due to our scale and broadcast audience reach. And when we adhere to the above metrics that you can see there on your screen in trying to maximize reach against a certain category buyer, we are extremely confident in the results that we are able to deliver for your clients. And the important part here is that we're going to have a growing bank of case studies that measure this success through our brand buyer tracker. And again, what is unique to this reporting is the reliance on transactional results as opposed to assumption data. And there's a short video that Tim's going to play for you now that talks to this. Fantastic. Okay, So before we move on from audience, it's probably worth spending about 10 seconds on the fact that our audience strategy also filters far beyond the briefing media market as well. It is absolutely applied to every part of our business, not least of all our commercial decisions. We are Australia's largest out-of-home network, and our ability to reach and optimize audience at scale is one of, if not our biggest attributes. And it is absolutely a core consideration at the heart of every commercial decision that we make as well. So if we talk about what is part of our hygiene, audience absolutely sits front and center of that, but there are a few other things that have also, I guess, moved forward at a rate that is quicker than what we would have expected because of what we've all been through the last couple of years. And one of those big headlines, which you would all no doubt be familiar with, is campaign flexibility. So like everybody else in the sector, through the last 2 years, we've adapted our trading terms to suit the many different requirements linked and backed by market-leading audience movement data. Flexible trading terms are now customised and applied at a client and campaign level to suit the challenges highlighted by interruptions like those encountered during the COVID pandemic. And moving forward, every single oOh! Contract now has a flexible trading terms offered to protect clients specific to the pandemic. Audience transparency. Now, this has always been a cornerstone of our business, our offering and our position in market. We've led the conversation in driving for consistent metrics for all out of home to be measured against, and this includes auditing, verification, and most recently Move 1.5, which has just been released by the IMAA. Most recently through the pandemic, we've led the market with DSpark movement data made available to all via weekly pulse reports, and hopefully you were privy to those as they came out in the last 18 months, linking revenue and make goods to audience performance. This approach will continue into 2022 post-COVID, and our commitment to delivering audience will be central to all contracts. Specifically to the audience dashboard, this has actually just gone and a refresh, if you like, at the start of this year. So everything we were looking at was comparing back to 2019. That is too far gone. So we are now moving forward, focusing on a rolling 52 weeks to look at insights of how audiences are performing. The other initiative that's very much part of our hygiene now is that of Boomtown. So the value of our regional markets, both in audience and growth, has only been amplified through the pandemic. And as such, the Boomtown initiative that we're really proud to be a part of has had a big year in 2021. So more specifically, we have trained 400, and not us alone, but we've been part of the training for 420 agency staff via platforms like Engine, also solo training as well. The Boomtown audience has grown from 8.8 million to 9.1, which is not surprising when you think about people moving around and going more to the suburban and regional areas through COVID. The Boomtown online hub launched in March 2021 and has now had over 4,000 unique users and briefs coming in. And in 2021, we saw a consistent stream of trade activity, refinement, and media presence, which is really exciting. So what lies ahead in this platform for 2022? It's very much about continued education, focus on marketer and client engagement. There'll also be quarterly surveys into finding out exactly how regional Aussies are feeling, thinking, and spending. That should be really helpful for campaign briefs as well. So if all of that is now what we call part of our hygiene factor, what is new in 2022? This first point is extremely exciting for us and a huge step forward, not only for us, but the out-of-home sector as a whole. As the asset owners of one of Australia's widest reaching media networks, we offer scale, tech, and data capabilities to build brands. We're now using our knowledge of what really works inside the frame to turbocharge your ROI with the launch of our creative agency, Polly. Now, this is new news. This hasn't actually launched yet. It will be coming in the months to come, but we just wanted to give you a preview of the space that we are going to be stepping into. I think when it comes to our network, we've handled more campaigns than anyone else, and we have the unique IP of knowing what actually works creatively to command someone's gaze and convert it into interest and motivation. So watch out for more news in that space. In regards to programmatic, it has most definitely been quite the journey for us. We're finally here and we're excited to be able to share our offering to market. So over the last 12 months, we have purposefully been preparing and gathering learnings from our global and local counterparts. What we know is that opportunity for programmatic digital out of home is obviously huge in the coming years, but we want to ensure that we distinguish its roles and responsibilities clearly in the greater scheme of the out-of-home market at the outset. So we went through a similar situation when we first launched our digital screens. We didn't want to diminish the huge success that we generated for Classic by cannibalizing our own product by shifting Classic buyers to digital. We needed to distinguish their roles, and that's what we've done again. So our approach to programmatic will be very similar to that. There is still a necessity for direct campaigns to guarantee screen time and deliver a base layer of activity to build reach, frequency, and brand fame. I guess our commitment to you as a partner is a trusted and once again transparent approach. We pride ourselves on being very trusted and transparent in our work with advertisers, agency, and commercial partners, working with industry data wherever possible. The second point is the quality and quantity of inventory and environments. We unlock more mindsets, more audience, and more contextual opportunities. And the third point is the scale of our network. Our scale of our assets environments means greater audience targeting opportunities for brands. So in terms of the different phases, the test and learn is very much what we will be focusing on in the next 12 months, and it's broken up into 3 stages, largely because we're such a big business and it is new waters for us, so we want to step into it cautiously. There probably will be changes from what we offer today as we navigate the landscape and our learnings within it. So today we are in phase 1 and we are now ready to trade. We are selling street furniture and billboards, and the environments which we will trade on programmatically across phases 2 and 3 will unlock further access to quality audiences in retail, rail, office, study, cafe, venue, and airports environments. We may not have all the answers today. We're not the experts in this space yet, but our goal is to be in 12 months' time, and we're very excited to be on this journey. So what we also wanted to give you some insight into is what we're constantly being asked about, not only through the reactive briefs that come into the business, but also through the conversations that we're having in market. Sam, Tim and I were talking just prior to this call about sustainability. It absolutely remains a key pillar for our business and will also be moving forward. It's an interesting one in terms of we started to see this come up on briefs a lot more probably about 3 to 4 years ago, but more and more so it sits at the heart of a lot of briefs that are coming in, which is really exciting to see. For us as a business, it's also not just a slogan, it's something that we absolutely want to live and breathe by, and there's a lot that we've done in this space. So we've got a few examples here. Half of our street furniture shelters have been converted to LED lighting, which has reduced our power consumption by 88%. All Classic posters for retail and street furniture are now printed on 100% recycled stock. More than 60% of our large format assets have been converted to LED lighting, and we are the only provider in the country who can offer recyclable billboard skins. More than 4,000 of our bus shelters are now operating with solar energy, which means a bus shelter can now be built and powered completely self-sustainably. And we are also working with the IMAA and their Net Zero initiative, which will allow advertisers to offset the environmental impact of their out-of-home activity via carbon offsetting. So these are just a few examples of the things that we've done. And the reason that we're raising this today is if it is important for your business and for your clients, we'd love to have a conversation around how we could collaborate together as well. Another thing that we are continually being asked about and will hopefully now make sense as we've touched on with the upcoming launch of our creative agency, Polly, obviously we're talking about the value of creative in the out-of-home sector. In recent years, we know that roughly 41% of out-of-home effectiveness comes down to creative copy, which makes sense when we think of out-of-home as the original broadcast channel and the original disruptor channel. And whilst that's not quite at the same level as TV, it's still over a third of your campaign effectiveness in terms of ROI is coming from the creative that is on the screen. We also know that now and continuing into 2022, there's a lot of focus on grabbing attention. And this is something that we would really like to talk to you more about with your clients' needs. Again, in terms of what's available to you, we have some incredibly talented people in this business, from copywriters to art directors, content creators that help us every day in responding to briefs and coming up with fantastic ideas. We have a creative library which has thousands and thousands of incredible ideas that are just sitting there. So if you ever are looking for inspiration, please make sure you reach out. This is something that we're more than happy to share because we know the importance of creative, and the more focus we put on it as a sector, the better results it is going to drive for you and for your clients. The other thing we're hearing a lot about is obviously industry standards. So as we all know, the IMAA has just launched Move 1.5 and the standardization project, which will create great opportunity for us. I guess without going into too much detail in this forum, the headlines of what it will provide are improved audience measurements, interim digital measurement to continue to provide more accurate measurement on digital between now and when Move 2.0 launches, which I think is proposed for 2024, and the introduction of the additional metric of impact in the neuro impact factor. As a business, we're really confident that Move 1.5 will reinforce both the role of classic and digital. We know when digital formats are used to their full potential, they do deliver great impact, and as we know, classic drives incredible reach. Dynamic pricing. This has been a really big focus for us as a business over the last 12 months. More specifically, models and systems have been implemented which enable us to be more accurate in responding to the market and trading dynamics. Things like demand, seasonality, commercial structures directly affect the pricing that we can achieve across all oOh! assets. And having a dynamic and constantly reviewed position on these factors allows us not only to trade higher when the market supports this, as well as giving us the speed and agility to trade hard when required or when opportunities exist. Ease of transaction. This has been a huge challenge over the last 2 years, and certainly with a network the size of oOh!, it has required significant commitment. oOh! Will continue to seek feedback, and again, this is something that we would love to talk to you all about on how we can continue to improve this area of our business. Systems are being produced and refined continually internally with the likes of OTP, our smart reach optimization tool, pricing tools, programmatic out of home, and many other bespoke systems are being developed with the view to automate, allowing us to respond to client briefs quickly and accurately. And hopefully that comes through again to go back to the start of this presentation when we talk about our investment in technology. So what are we watching as a business as we look forward into 2022? There are a few things more topical right now than the protection of data of individual privacy. As an out-of-home business, we absolutely acknowledge the value of data to help us reach the right audience. We do, however, make sure we are data compliant. Further to this, because we are a one-to-many medium, our interest really sits in broad trends from a macro lens rather than that individual insight. We're not interested in one-on-one personal information. But this conversation is something that we and the wider industry are closely watching. It's also worth mentioning that Move 2.0 will be built with the consideration around this as well. Our industry standard Move has actually always played in the headline that you can see on this space of the metric of attention. And again, this is something that is incredibly topical right now, but specifically to Move, we've always played in the space of likelihood to see, but we recognise it's becoming a more and more important metric. It is absolutely our intent as a business, if the opportunity arises, to do some testing in this space, and something that we are staying close to. So what are we going to ask you about? Now, this is going to be really hard to do because there's a lot of different people and businesses on this call, but we've talked about our focus of audience and obviously the big data that we tap into to help us optimize that. We need to better understand the planning tools that you guys are using. We need to make sure that what we're looking at is complementing what you're using and not contradicting. So it is our intent to go out and have conversations with you all and better understand that so that we can see where the opportunities are. And this is something that we're going to be doing right across the sector as well. The other thing that we'd love to ask you about is, what are your clients' big bets? Obviously, we've given some insight today into what we're focusing on, the importance of creative, us stepping into the market of programmatic, and our strategy around audience. But where are your clients focusing, and what are they looking at as we start to look ahead to the rest of this year? And a final thought, just to leave you with some inspiration. Nobody reads advertising, which is a funny statement for me to make, but people do read what interests them, and sometimes it's an ad. And this is a great statement and something that we love to put at the heart of every client solution that we come up with, because it gives us the opportunity to bring together the worlds of data and creative. And again, guys, there's just a heap of different creative examples that we've seen globally in recent months that we wanted to put in here for some inspiration. The movie world obviously does it really, really well, but there's some great examples in there. And again, we have a whole library full of creative inspiration of things that we're seeing globally. So please reach out if you would like some more information to a certain category. And for us, I think that's it. Are we done?
I think we are done.
I think we are done. Sam,
switch the camera back on.
I'm not sure if we're throwing back to you at this point.
I think there's a couple of questions there, Tim, that you might want to refer to.
Fantastic. Let me just grab them. Okay, great. All right, let's go top to bottom. And the first question is for you, Eliza. Hey, Eliza from Brent O'Rourke. Hello, Brent. Where does oOh collect those audience numbers from?
Great question. And it's a question that's probably too big to go into deep detail about today, but we use a combination of it's transactional data and it's also telco data, and there's algorithms that are applied to that. So we can share some more information, but there's a lot of different data points that we pull in to look at the movement data. Sorry, the audience movement.
Okay, question number 2 is from Mobber. Are there plans to gather audience data on regional sites? Very good question. Right at this point in time, we can offer through our own audience intelligence data down to regional level. I guess you could also call it sub-regional level as well. For individual sites, not at this point in time, but we can go to regions though. And if you need more on that, I can get the guys to shoot you across some examples.
I think too, our smart reach optimization, when we are actually measuring the audience numbers on that is inclusive of regional markets as well. So yeah, we can look at it in that space as well.
Yeah. Leah, great sustainability initiatives. Thank you very much. I'm glad you agree. Thank you. Awesome. Brent, again, flybys, everyday rewards by phone, Digi IDs.
I might need more context, Brent.
I think that was referring to the first question about collection of audience numbers, maybe.
Oh, is that how the algorithm is determined?
Yeah, we might send that information across, Brent, rather than go into detail on this call around that.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. And thank you very much for your partnership as well and support of the Indies. We couldn't do it without your support. You were there from the start. So thank you very much.